Callan, thank you for being on the microphone today. Introduce yourself and whom you announce for, please.
Of course, JT. Thanks for the invite, man. We were just talking a little bit backstage about being active in our public address announcing group, but I've been announcing in San Diego, California this was my 15th season. Mainly known for my time in the American Hockey League with the San Diego Gulls, directly affiliated with the NHL's Anaheim Ducks. I just wrapped up a 11-year run, 7-year PA run with the San Diego Sockers of the Major Arena Soccer League, who are San Diego's most winning franchise. They've won 16 championships in club history, dating back to the 70s all the way through 2023, 2024. I've done work at the University of San Diego, still work there. I've been there for 6 seasons and also wrapped up 8 years at Point Loma Nazarene University in the D2 rank. So I've made my rounds over 15 years.
Yeah, I know this little fast fact and off the cuff question because I didn't know about you announcing at University of San Diego. That is where Jim Harbaugh got his start in the collegiate ranks. Were you announcing then? That's been several years
No,
ago.
I was very young when Coach Harbaugh was at USD, but family friend of ours, but we've always called her Auntie Carolyn for so long. She was actually the athletic trainer at the university when they first went Division One. So me and my family were always at USD sporting events. So we saw Jim Harbaugh coach at USD. I remember growing up though with Hank Egan coaching the men's basketball team, and then Brad Holland took over, then Bill Greer took over. So that's like, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. And now being able to work at a university that I've gone to since I was practically a kid in diapers 30 years ago, to now being able to work there and work with so many great people is just phenomenal. But Coach Harbaugh was way before my time, sadly, at USD.
I understand that. I knew it had been a while since he was there. And that was, are they still a non-scholarship football program?
Yes, they are. They are still in the Pioneer Football League, and they're still plugging away doing football. And I mean, they're still a very good program. And last year was a little bit of a down year, but new coach came into place and things like that. But certainly, one of the more successful programs on our campus between football, women's volleyball. Our baseball team is in the regional this year in 2024. Our men's soccer team won the conference championship this year. So it's been a very good year for Torero athletics here at the University of San Diego.
Excellent. And that was all just on the fly there. But let's get to the set questions now. You mentioned hockey, you mentioned soccer. What is your favorite sport to announce?
I wrestle with this question, JT, very often about what exactly I love. I grew up playing baseball, and I grew up when the Padres were making their World Series run in 1998. I was very young when they won the division championship in 96. I didn't quite know about the game, but after going, because my family and I had season seats for so long at Qualcomm Stadium. When I was growing up, it was Qualcomm. But the 98 Padres were like living, breathing superheroes. So my brother was already playing. Then my parents eventually made me play baseball. So I was like, baseball through and through. And then I stumbled upon minor league hockey here in San Diego in the early 2000s when I was in first grade. And the Gulls at the time, they were still called the Gulls, they were in the AA ranks. They were in a league called the West Coast Hockey League. So they were feeding guys to the American Hockey League franchise, I believe in Cincinnati at the time when they were with the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. And I thought that was like Major League Baseball for hockey because it was a team in San Diego. But they were playing a lot of teams in smaller California towns like Bakersfield and Fresno and Long Beach. And they went all the way to Anchorage, Alaska. They went to Phoenix, Arizona. They played teams in Oklahoma City. They played a team in Boise, Idaho. So I got hooked on it, though, after just going to one game as a kid because the school district gave out a buy one, get one free like every October for the kids to go to back to school night. And like from that day forward, I was going to every weekend game and just got hooked on it, started playing inline hockey around that same time. And honestly, I would probably say hockey's probably my favorite, but then tomorrow it could be baseball. It's very much hockey, baseball is my main two favorites because I grew up around the game for so long. But I think with the longer track record of doing hockey over these past 9 years in the American League, but I've also done like college prospect leagues and junior hockey leagues. I think probably hockey's probably one. I think baseball's kind of 1B, but again, it kind of like fluctuates from day to day.
I think that is so neat how you got hooked off a promotion. You never know what promotion's going to work and so forth. And here you are, a kid, and you get hooked because of a buy one get one free kids event. That is so neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to kind of think about the fact of like, just like going to one game, like, obviously baseball was second nature, but the speed of hockey, the intensity level, the guys beating the crap out of each other. And especially, in that day and age where in the minor leagues, it was, score enough goals to win. Then it became a full blown, wrestling match or boxing match where everyone's, dropping the gloves. And that's what really got me into the sport. But also, I think I also think though, JT, about how the players were towards the fans. Like they were very outgoing. They did a lot, they still do a lot of community outreach, but like in this time frame, they were like very much, very hands-on to like, mingle with the fans and stuff like that as well.
Now, you have announced over 400 hockey games. So, at what number do you think you found your groove as an announcer with that sport? How many games did it take you to feel, all right, this is how you do it at a professional, high performing level?
Man, yeah. So I think uh it was over 400 this year, but I was doing a lot of research during COVID, kind of seeing where I stood. And during that time, the league database I used to work in the Western States Hockey League no longer existed. So I was missing out on a lot of games that I know I worked, but were not reflective on it by a schedule. But I think I found the groove for hockey probably, I'd say probably my last year working in the junior ranks. So year 5 was when it was my second year doing it, and it was very simple, like very easy, because I had gone from trying to do play by play my first couple years. That was a train wreck. And then I end up doing a lot of other things, though, to kind of work my way back into some sort of media position with the franchise I was working for. And by the time new owners came in, they had no PA announcer. And I literally got a phone call as I was coming off the freeway towards to the arena. We need someone to do the in house announcing. I'm like, okay, that sounds like I can do that. And literally, I'm like, this is more of my pace. I'll stick with this. So I'd probably say my last year working in junior hockey. So probably I'd say like by game 20, maybe, because I was doing both in game announcing and also running the music during the games. But now, though, as I've gone to the American Hockey League and gone to, the professional ranks, now everything is just second nature. I mean, everything is basically this, every game is structured the same way practically, other than when we do maybe a theme night for Star Wars or Marvel Comics, or we do breast cancer awareness night, or we do some theme night, but every game is still structured the same way with the same reads about sponsors and in-game entertainment bits that we do and the in-game promotions. But maybe we do have something coming up with like, hey, we're going to have team bowling night, for example. We'll have to make that announcement. But I think that like at least like 20 games in, maybe 25, maybe 30 at most is kind of when I think everything was just like clockwork. And I think in the American League, after I had filled in for a few games, I'd probably say by game 10, maybe with the pro ranks, is like I knew what I was going to get myself into with a professionally run franchise and professionally run game staff practically. And by like game 10, like it was pretty straightforward from there.
Nice. And I love the fact that you brought up that, you know, at at the start, what you were doing was not successful, and you learned by experience. I think that's something everyone needs to hear. You're very successful now, but you got to get through that learning curve.
Yeah, the learning curve really, I think, was like a pretty good little shot in the arm, or like a little kick in the butt of like, hey, you can have you can have the voice or have the experience, but if you can't follow the puck calling play by play for a hockey game, you are screwed. Putting it, literally and figuratively. And I kind of found out, the hard way, and then I end up, working my way back into it, but in a different, role, which I thought, or which I a lot of people, friends of mine know me more for hockey than they know me for college announcing or soccer announcing or any other sport I've done. They only know me from doing, minor league hockey, which is, kind of crazy, but cool to think about at the same time.
You're a West Coast guy. You're in the Sunshine State, and what is considered like the the holy land of perfect weather, San Diego. Have you ever experienced any inclement weather? Is like, what is this rain delay that other people are talking about on the East Coast?
They're very rare to come by. Now, I did have one during a football game at USD a couple seasons ago where there was heavy rain, not really heavy rain, but it was coming in, but there was also lightning. So the game was held up at halftime because lightning was in the area. So I periodically made a couple of announcements, telling folks, so how our campus is set up. We have our football stadium, and across the walkway is our basketball and volleyball arena. That is where people go to shelter in place if they are at an outdoor game and they have to, take refuge in the gym during the course of a delay at the football stadium. And every so often, I would be making announcements about we're still, minutes away. We've had to push it back and stuff, and all that. But they don't happen very often, and when they do happen, all of us are like, "What is this stuff falling from the sky?" But also, there's some of us, though, who will run around the block if it's pouring rain because it doesn't happen very often.
Mm.
But certainly in my 15 years, going on 16 years, the upcoming school year with weather issues, though, I have, I mean, I've had rain delays. I've had the power go out during a couple of games because of curfews on the campus. And I've also endured or had games having to be suspended and picked up because the sun went down and the field didn't have lights. But like with actual rain, though, JT, it doesn't happen very often. Now we are in what we call May gray, going into June gloom, which is where the marine layer and clouds come in off the ocean and they kind of just hover around all day. They really put a damper on the day or on your day. But usually by the time that like mid June, late June, and July comes around, it becomes very nice and sunny and very warm and stuff. But there's always a saying that it's sunny in California or San Diego 300 days out of the year, and there's those 65 days where it's not very sunny, and if it does rain like really hard, like over a day or two stretch usually.
Well, at least you get it out of the way, and the majority of
We
the
get it
time
out
you
of the
got,
way, but
yeah.
we also but like then spring sports get affected with baseball and softball. Like, oh great, now we have to worry about the forecast and maybe play a doubleheader tomorrow or what have you.
What is your favorite thing about announcing? What keeps you doing this job over and over and over?
Man, that is a great question. I think JT, the thing that keeps me going is that this is the only thing I've known. My parents loved telling the story about when I was very young, about 4 or 5 years old. Around this time, like I said though earlier in our chat here, when the Padres were going to the World Series in 1998, their radio broadcaster Ted Leitner, who's been doing San Diego State football and basketball, he's about to retire, I think, after the upcoming school year. But Ted has been sports director here at our CBS station. He did the Padres forever. He did the Chargers for a long time. He's done SDSU athletics, though. So when Ted was the sports director at Channel 8 News here in San Diego, there was literally one day that I stopped what I was doing on the living room floor and just watched Ted give the sports update in like pure awe. And that was kind of like the light bulb moment for me of like, oh my goodness, that's what I'm going to do. And from that day forward, I never once changed my mind. And that's kind of been like why I'm still in the field for so long, or why this is the only thing I do with myself. It's like I don't know what else I'd be doing with my life. Basically, it's been sports from the get go. It's been about being in broadcasting, announcing since that day, and I never have once changed my mind. I've tried to dive into writing. I've tried to dive into other things, but nothing really has taken over the announcing side of it. And I think I just love it for the fact, though, that it's a way for me to give back to the sporting community because, I played, high school baseball. I had a chance to play in college, but I was really hell-bent on getting into broadcasting. But I also think, though, and especially, and I've said this a couple times, though, on some podcasts I've hosted, is the best part about, or the thing, though, about me being a part of about hockey is that this is a non-traditional sport out here in Southern California. I mean, here we have 3 NHL teams and some wildly successful minor league clubs out here, especially here in San Diego, where the sport's been here since World War II, and it's gone through numerous leagues and branding and stuff like that. But like part of my purpose is to help grow that sport in this town and in this state and stuff like that. But I think mainly I just love it for the fact of it was a dream job for me. Like, going from being that kid sitting at the sports arena watching the Gulls play the Bakersfield Condors, the Fresno Falcons, to now being in that chair at center ice in the penalty box, and now having my voice boom over this 58-year-old arena, where, I saw so many, great, hockey teams play and soccer teams play, and being a part of that and I think mainly being a part of the fans' game day experience is, I think, the most rewarding part, because I get stopped when I leave the arena. I get stopped at the bar, in the arena parking lot, at the Chili's that I go to. I get recognized when I go watch my friends play like a 10 o'clock beer league game. Like, people know who I am around town, which is like borderline scary, but it's also like really cool though at the same time. Like, people actually know you from somewhere that they spend their Friday night at or Saturday night at. And I also think, though, JT, and I say this a lot to a lot of people, is that I also think, though, that fans, I think, really have appreciated and I think really now embrace the in-game entertainment teams, the PA announcers and the in-game hosts, because that was all taken away from them during COVID. I think you have your stories of working games without fans. I have my stories of working games without fans. I mean, I literally would travel when the Gulls played their COVID season up in Irvine, which is about an hour north of San Diego. I would hop on the Amtrak, take it along the coastline, go up to Irvine, check into a hotel, and then work a game or two over a weekend, and there'd be nobody in the building. College games are probably the absolute worst, because I couldn't sit courtside and call the games if I was doing play-by-play for basketball. I had to be in a office building calling a game off my computer screen, like we're, sitting here right now. And I just actually came across a reel of Kevin Harlan. His wife was in his basement filming him do an open to a NBA telecast from his basement during COVID. So I think a lot of fans, I think, really have further gravitated, I think, more and more to the in-game entertainment aspects, because all that was taken away from them for so long 4 years ago.
That is an excellent insight. I mean, when you think about it, I think you're spot on, and about that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, I really think so, because, I didn't really think about that until I think the first game I worked when fans were allowed to come back is kind of when it dawned on me, like, now I have more and more people reaching out to me, after games are over. I mean, literally, after I did my 300th AHL game this past season, I got a bunch of like greeting cards from the fans after the game was over that I, took home and opened up, and just reading the messages, though, of like, thank you for the job that you do, and then even there was a year where we were in the conference final in 2019, and we were playing the series around my 25th birthday. Literally after the first home game, I got this I have it saved somewhere, this ginormous, oversized birthday card with all of my like coworkers of mine and all of my friends who come to the hockey games that are season ticket holders. Like, they all, gave me wishes, but they also like wrote, though, thank you so much for being a part of our game day experience. Like, that really, stays here, because it really shows, though. And I think, though, as I brought up, though, about the perspective of when they couldn't come and watch our team play, when we had guys like Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale playing with the Gulls, because we were playing behind closed doors up in Orange County, up in Irvine. And then when they all got to come back for the first home game after all the restrictions were finally lifted, I think I have a picture, because at the time I was not able to be in the box because there were still COVID measures in place. But I got a picture during the first period of our first home game back after the long COVID shutdown, of having the entire building sold out from where I was sitting in the press box. Like, this is what I've missed, is having these people in this building, whether they're rooting for our team or not, just having fans back in the stands. And I think that's why I think that now this position and this role has become more and more loved and respected and also appreciated by the fans because, again, they missed out on that for 4+, they missed out on that for over a year during, the shutdowns 4 years ago.
Excellent insights, Cal. Absolutely excellent on that. You've mentioned indoor soccer, and that is an extremely fast and usually physical sport. And from my area, we have outdoor soccer. My son
Same.
loves soccer, but we don't really have indoor soccer. Explain the difference between indoor and outdoor football, if you will.
Yeah, totally. Indoor soccer is played just like outdoor, but it's on a hockey rink, and you play it just like a hockey game. You have 5 players attacking and one goalkeeper. You dress 2 goalkeepers, and you play with your forwards and centermen and your defenders, and you have them as forwards or midfielders or defenders, much like you would in outdoor soccer. And you play a condensed 4-minute or 4-quarter 15-minute game. And you know, soccer was a sport I always respected, but really didn't get behind until I got in with working with the Soccers. So, in perspective, this team has been around since 1978, and they used to play outdoors at Jack Murphy Qualcomm Stadium. Way back when the NASL was the NASL before MLS came along. So believe it or not, the San Diego Soccers played against the San Jose Earthquakes, the Portland Timbers, the Seattle Sounders, the Vancouver Whitecaps, teams who are still playing now in Major League Soccer were one-time opponents of the Soccers in the NASL. They drew okay at Jack Murphy Stadium, but it wasn't as successful as when they went indoors. When the NASL went indoors, then I believe it became the Major Indoor Soccer League. And that league had their run throughout the 80s. And throughout the 80s, the Soccers won, believe it or not, they won 10 championships in a 11-year span. And this team really turned the city on its head because the Padres weren't very good in the 80s other than 84. The Chargers had their playoff runs with Coryell and Fouts. But the Soccers really flipped the city on its head. And also we had the Clippers, and they were already gone by 84. But the Soccers really made this town into a soccer destination. They had a lot of great guys who still live in town here. Some of them still coach, believe it or not, even to this day. For example, Brian Quinn is one of the more notable Soccers of all time. He is still our head men's soccer coach at USD and led his team to the conference title this past year, and he's been wildly successful over at USD. So it's a pretty cool activity that I get to share with people is that, this guy used to play for the Soccers, and I worked for them for 11 seasons. But literally throughout the 80s, I mean, they would be selling out the sports arena for regular season games. And then come playoff time, if it was the championship series, that clinching game would be sold out morning of the game. Like there are stories of them playing the Baltimore Blast like every other year. Like Baltimore and San Diego had a major, major rivalry back in those days. It was always them playing for the championship. And there was one particular game that sold out in 5 hours. Like people really got invested behind indoor soccer because I think it was, the condensed field, the speed of the game, the high scoring. You're talking about games going like 11-10, 9-8, 5-3. Way different than outdoor soccer where you're just kind of hoping and praying you get one goal and it doesn't go to penalty kicks. But literally, they would jam 12,000, 13, 14,000 people, standing room only. And there was only 1 year throughout this stretch they did not win the championship, but every other year they were winning the championship. And that was kind of though, when that sport was at their climax. They had deals with USA TV and ESPN at one point. I mean, JP Dellacamera, probably the best well-known soccer announcer, used to call these games on ESPN. And now he's actually the league's director of communications and media relations, which is really cool to have him in our back pocket. But then, though, by the 90s and when I was growing up, though, the sport really kind of lost its luster because the MISL had folded. A lot of the NBA and NHL owners tried to restart the league as the Continental Indoor Soccer League. But it was a lot of the basketball teams and hockey teams who looked to get revenue over the summer. So they played a summer schedule when hockey and basketball would be out of season. So the league was like San Diego, Anaheim got involved, LA got involved, Sacramento got involved. I believe Dallas got involved at Reunion Arena at one point, and the team was still good, but it wasn't quite the same feel. And by the time I went to a couple of games, the team was nowhere what it used to be. They were playing under a very weird like basketball scoring system when I went to a couple of games. And the teams were not what they used to be. Like, a lot of the marquee franchises had folded or they went to different leagues. And then the team folded, and then they came back in 2009. They were founded by the owner had a construction company, and they were playing home games at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. And they came back and they won 3 straight championships. Then by the time I got involved with the club, they had just moved back to the sports arena when it was then called Valley View Casino Center. So I was a game day operations intern for 4 seasons. So I was kind of just helping out set up the merchandise booth, helping out with giveaways, doing a lot of the nitty gritty with like setting up like birthday party events and stuff like that. And then by year 4 is when they needed a new PA announcer, and they knew I had gotten the job with the Gulls at the time. And I did 1 game for them filling in. And then by the summer of the off season is when they gave me the job. So I was very blessed and fortunate to be a part of 3 championship teams in 11 seasons. My first year we won it, and then the COVID shortened season. So when the whole COVID thing happened, the team ended up playing, but the league, was in disarray because, well, you can't really play in San Diego because we have, these restrictions in place with COVID. So the team elected to play the year, though, but they played all away games. They went to markets like Kansas City and I believe Dallas and Mesquite. They went to Florida. I believe they went to Utica, I want to say, but they went to markets, though, where the league already had bubbles in place. And the team wasn't, they were okay, but they weren't really what they were, but they still won the championship. The team, though, out of the generosity of their hearts, though, said, hey, we know that you couldn't work any games. We're giving you a ring regardless because you were on our staff, but you weren't able to do any games. Then the following season, they won it again, and I got my 3rd championship. But the team is in the process of moving to Oceanside, which is about roughly 40 minutes north of where I live. And because of how my schedule is very compacted and tight and very loaded, I couldn't really justify making their 12 home games work, knowing that they will probably play the same nights as the hockey team. And the hockey season's much longer than indoor soccer. They play 24 games, 12 at home. The hockey team plays 72 games, 36 in total at home. So it just really didn't line up, sadly. But, I have a lot of great moments or a lot of great memories, all that good stuff, though. But it's certainly a sport, though, that I think has started and stopped a lot, though. But it's a very fun game, though. If you've never seen soccer in person, definitely give indoor a chance beforehand, because I think, though, that you will probably gravitate a bit more towards the indoor game because it's not as slow paced of the outdoor game. But I also, I've worked in college soccer. I've done a lot of outdoor soccer too over my career, though, too. And I think you have to not really like get a taste for the game, though, but I enjoy doing outdoor soccer regardless because, again, it's about like the speed of the game, how fast these players can be, some of the goals that they can score, especially in the indoor game, though, too. But certainly it was a very great 11-year ride, working in indoor soccer. And also, again, being a part of a team, though, who, has brought a lot of championship glory to San Diego, California throughout the course of their history.
Excellent, man. And you mentioned the Clippers. I just learned because the barber that I went to joined the barber shop that I go to from California. And he talked about the Clipper ships. I'm like, what are you talking about? And yeah, that's where the Clippers came from, that nautical theme, the Clipper ships. So I learned something. You never know when you're going to learn something.
Yeah, you can, if you're ever in town, you can actually see the Star of India, which is what the Clippers were named after. It's still here docked here in San Diego, and occasionally it'll go out and kind of do a bit of a tour of the bay and stuff. But yeah, that I wasn't alive, sadly, when the Rockets and Clippers were both in San Diego, but I do appreciate that the Clippers are moving their G League team, their minor league club, to San Diego next season. And they really, over these past several years have done a really great job tapping back into the San Diego market. Now, this is obviously a big Laker town, sadly, because the Lakers were so successful and that the NBA, didn't work here on two separate occasions with, the Rockets, and then the Clippers came here, and, we had Bill Walton and Norm Nixon and those guys playing for the team and stuff like that. But the Clippers, though, have done a just really amazing job of tapping back into the San Diego market. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Norman Powell have come to Padre games in the past. And certainly, a team that was in Buffalo, then came here, then went to LA, but they've not forgotten where they have came from, though. I give a lot of respect, though, to the Clippers for trying to still keep their San Diego heritage alive, even up in Los Angeles.
Now, let me ask you a few rapid fire questions. Give me some quick answers on these. Outdoor or indoor events, which do you prefer?
Probably indoor. I do a lot more indoor probably than outdoor events.
Okay. You mentioned a lot of sports in California. When I think of New York City, I think basketball. When I think Alabama, Florida, I think football. Kentucky, my state, basketball. What is California's favorite athletic activity?
Ooh, good question. I will probably go with I would probably say, man, that is a tough one because we've had a lot of great talent with baseball and football out of our state. I'll go off the board and say surfing, just for the fact it's actually the state sport out here, and the beach is literally 20 minutes to the west from where I live. So I'll go surfing. I'll go with a little bit of a nice little curveball.
Let's say someone watching or listening is planning on going to San Diego for vacation. Where do you recommend they go to get the best seafood?
Ooh, best seafood. Ooh, man. That is a good question. I'm not a big seafood guy, but certainly you'll find a lot of great spots along the bay in downtown. Anthony's Fish Grotto is a notable place. The Brigantine, if you also love oysters and clams, that's a good spot to go to. But yeah, downtown probably has your best options because it's near where it's kind of near where the tuna industry took off here in town. So yeah, you can find really good seafood though all throughout town. Though if you want some really good ones, downtown on the Embarcadero on the waterfront.
And last question. If you could give yourself one piece of advice when you first began this announcer journey, what would it be?
Just keep going. Don't stop. Just keep going. That you're going to endure peaks and valleys, just like when you played sports. You're going to go through winning streaks, losing streaks, great days, bad days. Just keep going one day at a time.
Callan, thank you so much for your time joining us, being on the microphone. As always, the guest closes out the show for their donating their time for being a guest. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, JT, thanks again, man. This was really fun to be a part of it. If you folks want to follow me on the web, you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Callan Mac Sports, CALLANMAC with the word sports. There's plenty of pictures of me at the office, plenty of pictures of my dog, plenty of pictures of me going to, theme parks around Southern California, but mainly sports is where it's at for me. You can follow me on X at Calamax Sports. I don't really use it a whole lot though, but it still is up though in operating still. And you can also find me hosting a couple of podcasts on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I do one that is a late night sports talk show, and I also do one that is a pretty cool project I've been doing for about almost 30 shows already, which is covering the sports business and sports media side of the industry. It's called Press Row. And also starting up in late June, I'll be doing a podcast and doing some PA announcing for a brand new San Diego-based inline men's roller hockey league, which will be very fun, and it'll be fun to be a part of too. And we get started on June 22nd. So that's where you can find me.
Cal, again, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you again, my man, and we'll talk again soon.